What is up, Chicago Bears fans? Welcome into the Bears Talk podcast. We are live here on YouTube, and if you're listening to in the podcast form, welcome back. It's been a while since we've had an episode, and there's some good reasons for that. I'll touch on that in a little bit. We, of course, is on the website on bearstalk.com. A lot of technical upgrades. We brought in a whole new tech team that did an amazing job upgrading the site, and we're so proud of how that looks. We'll get into that in a little bit, but more importantly, we're going to try to have some healthy Chicago Bears talk tonight, something that is becoming really hard to find on social media, on Twitter, on wherever you're consuming Bears content. It's becoming more difficult by the day to have a healthy, mature, honest conversation about this offseason, one that the Chicago Bears, honestly, it's the most special offseason we're ever going to experience as Bears fans. And that's not hyperbole. This is a once in a lifetime offseason for Bears fans. So I want to have a healthy conversation about Caleb Williams and Justin Fields and about the 2024 NFL draft. And obviously, we got to talk about Devin Hester too, right? We're a mere moments away from him officially becoming a Pro Football Hall of Famer. He's one of my all-time favorites. He's right back here in my little Bears shelf. So we're going to break all that down. We have a special guest, Luke Easterling from Athlon Sports, who he is one of the best, absolute best, bar none, NFL draft analysts in the business right now. He's going to help us break down Caleb Williams, help us break down what the Chicago Bears might even be able to do at the number 9 pick. It's a pick that isn't being discussed quite enough by Bears fans. It's a top 10 pick, and it's like it doesn't exist right now. So we're going to dive into that as well. For now, let's have some Bears talk. Bears fans, I am really pumped to be back with you guys. It's been a little while, like I said. Bears Talk is a growing operation, the podcast, the YouTube channel. We want to grow this just like the website has grown. It's grown beyond my wildest expectations here in the first 24 months that we've been live, and it's because of you guys, the diehard Chicago Bears fans. You feel that passion and energy anytime you log on to Bears Twitter. You got to buckle up. You might have to wear a bulletproof vest and bring an arsenal of weaponry with you, but the passion and diehard nature of this fan base is very real, and it's reflected in the success that Bears Talk is having so far. And we're going to now be back consistently this offseason here on the YouTube channel and on your favorite podcast provider. So make sure, obviously, got to get this out of the way, that you like, subscribe, comment, share, do whatever you got to do to help spread the word about this podcast. Bears fans, also, you can go over to Bears Talk right now. We have an awesome premium subscription package that's available for Bears Talkers. It's like less than a cup of coffee per month to get ad-free experience on Bears Talk. Get rid of all those annoying ads. You'll also get access to our exclusive content, which is really going to be NFL draft heavy right now, scouting reports, Bears-based big boards, stuff that I just want to share with you guys, the diehard premium Bears Talkers. And we also now have a Discord channel for Bears Talkers, so you'll be able to hop in there. It's a couple bucks a month. It helps keep the lights on. We'd really appreciate you guys giving that some consideration. Help out an independent Bears blog like us. I truly believe the foundation of the Bears fandom right now, the Bears coverage, is from the passionate fans who are committing their time and putting out content on a daily, maybe every other day basis, whether it's podcasts or YouTube channels or these standalone websites. So give us some consideration for that premium account. We would really appreciate it. But really, that's not what we're here to talk about. None of you guys are watching right now to talk about Bears Talk Premium. We have the biggest and most important offseason in Chicago Bears history at the doorstep right now. We're at the doorstep of the most important offseason in Bears history. The Super Bowl is happening in a couple of days. And when you watch the two teams, the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs, you see two clubs that Bears fans hope one day the Chicago Bears will get to that level, that the Chicago Bears will be playing on Super Sunday and Media Week and Media Row will be full of all the Bears storylines and the Bears backstories and maybe even an MVP quarterback, right? That would be the day that the Chicago Bears actually have a quarterback who strikes fear into opposing defenses. And that's where I want to start. Justin Fields versus Caleb Williams. I mean, that's really all that matters. That's all matters to you. It's all that matters to me. Everything else is kind of like icing on the cake. Whatever Ryan Poles does this offseason to improve the roster through free agency or his other picks in the NFL draft, that's all great. I mean, but who's playing quarterback, right? And in an NFC North that clearly has opened some eyes this year. The Detroit Lions were supposed to be good. The Green Bay Packers were not supposed to be this good. Jordan Love was not supposed to be this good. And the Minnesota Vikings were a Kirk Cousins injury away from also probably being really good. And the Chicago Bears, unfortunately, a 7-win team is a good year for what maybe we were expecting, but it clearly is nowhere near competing in the NFC North. And the only way you're going to catch up, the only way the Bears are going to potentially be able to hang with the Green Bay Packers, the only way the Bears are going to potentially be able to hang with the Detroit Lions, you need that quarterback. Is it Justin Fields? I know there's a lot of you. I have a poll right now in the chat here on the YouTube channel that is asking you guys to vote. And right now it's literally 50-50. 50% of the people who have voted have said Justin Fields. 50% of the people who have voted have said Caleb Williams. And if nothing tells the story of the Bears offseason so far better, it's that. It's a divided fan base, a split right down the middle in terms of Team Fields or Team Caleb Williams. And as I said the other night, I was on the Tape Never Lies podcast with Draft Dr. Phil and Shane, and I made it, the biggest thing I want us Bears fans to kind of to figure out again, to come back, like recenter ourselves and realize that the goal here is not, are you going to win the Fields versus Caleb Williams argument? Who gives a shit about that? The goal is, are the Chicago Bears going to win football games? Are the Chicago Bears going to have a quarterback who can make them compete for the NFC North, who can make them compete for a wild card or even, just a 4,000-yard passer who can strike fear in the defense? The goal is what will make the Chicago Bears a better team. Is it Caleb Williams or is it Justin Fields? And when Justin Fields was drafted by the Bears in 2021, I think a lot of Bears fans felt like the savior had finally arrived, that the savior was here, that he was the guy who was going to break the quarterback curse. But this is the roller coaster ride, Bears fans. I mean, we've been on this ride, it seems like forever, and we're still on it. We're still on this roller coaster ride where, it was Jay Cutler, some good games, some really, really head-scratching games. Mitch Trubisky kind of flirted with, could he be the answer? And then you realize pretty quickly he wasn't the guy. And now it's Justin Fields. And for every miraculous 65-yard run he rips off, there is some head-scratching, slow processing, inaccurate passes that makes you say, we're just still on this turbulent roller coaster ride that you kind of have a ticket to get off of now. And it's a ticket that no Bears fan in their wildest dreams a couple of years ago could have imagined this team having this opportunity. It's like you randomly go to 7-Eleven or whatever convenience stores in your hometown, and you're driving to work, and you stop for a cup of coffee, and you say, yeah, I'll buy a Powerball ticket, not even thinking twice about it, and the numbers hit. Life-changing, right? That's usually how it happens, too. That's what Ryan Poles pulled off with the trade last year with the Carolina Panthers, getting DJ Moore and this pick, in addition to other picks. He got the winning Powerball ticket because Caleb Williams is the Powerball. He's the bounty. He's what every team was hoping to be in position to draft this year, was that guy, Caleb Williams. And the Bears have gotten there. But that's my opinion. What I want to do right now is bring in our guest from Athlon Sports, who to me, for my money, is the best NFL draft analyst on the beat right now. And before he comes on, I gotta fluff him up a little bit here. That's probably a bad term to use, but growing up as a draft fan, I'm sure you guys are out there. You did the same thing. You would go in your local pharmacy or whatever. Maybe it's, you see the draft magazines, right? The old school draft magazines. Maybe you bought the Mel Kiper draft book. And the guys who had their names attached to those publications, they were the real deal. And then obviously everything has moved to digital plus print and everything else. But having at your hands on a draft guide published by a big media outlet, that's kind of like a badge of honor, right? Well, our guy, Luke Easterling, is the senior editor of the Athlon Sports 2024 NFL Draft Guide. And let me tell you something, if there's anybody's opinion who we're going to want to listen to very closely about what the Chicago Bears probably should do in the first round with the first pick and the ninth pick, it's this guy. Because let's be honest, he's got no skin in the game. Luke isn't a Bears fan trying to gain clout by being right about the Justin Fields scouting report or I don't know, being pro Caleb Williams and just hating on Justin. He's got no skin in the game. He is just evaluating the draft. Luke, welcome back, a longtime friend of the show, to the Bears Talk podcast. Please bring some good energy, some good vibes to this conversation, because Chicago Bears fans certainly need it. This is like a Chicago Bears fan civil war going on right now, and it's really unhealthy, to be honest with you. To me, this is like Andy Bernard said in The Office. I wish I knew I was in the good old days when I was in the good old days, or something like that. I probably butchered the saying, but right now, this offseason for the Bears, this is the good old days. And Bears fans are going to look back on this years from now and wish that they probably appreciated it more than I think they are. So, Luke, if you had a message to send to Bears fans, what would it be?
I mean, I think the message is you have a beautiful problem on your hands. Who look at how many other teams would rather be in this position than where they are. Would you rather have no quarterback whatsoever? Would you rather have, no prospects on the horizon? Would you rather be Denver at 12 in this first round, coming out of the Russell Wilson debacle and trying to figure out what you're going to do with him, with that contract after that trade? Would you rather be in their shoes, still needing a quarterback, even after giving all that up? Would you rather be, Vegas picking in the teens with no quarterback, Minnesota, depending on what happens with Kirk Cousins, all these teams that have way bigger questions than Justin Fields at quarterback right now and don't have a number one overall pick with which they could address that? The Bears have both of those things. So, when you talk about the kind of infighting that we've seen from some of the Bears fans over which way they should go, this really should be a unifying situation, because no matter what you choose, I really don't think there's a wrong decision here. I think that, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the pros and cons over, what if you go down either of those roads, what are your options? What would be best for the franchise, and what would happen if you go down either way? I really don't see a wrong decision. Obviously, in hindsight, 5-10 years from now, you'll be able to look back and say, oh, they should have done this or that, or they made the right call. But from where I'm sitting right now, it's hard for me to look at keep Justin Fields, take Marvin Harrison, trade down and load up on more resources versus take Caleb Williams, trade Justin Fields, get more picks. You got another top 10 pick. I don't see a wrong decision there. And that's something that should unify Bears fans with this opportunity instead of, kind of pulling them apart.
I agree with you, Luke. It's one of the things I've been saying all along. It's like, how great of a situation is Ryan Poles in, right? The classic post-draft grades that everybody's going to write. You're going to have every team graded, probably instant reaction.
That night, right? We always have it done that night.
Yeah, as soon as the pick is made, you're going to have a grade for it. And literally, so let's get in the mind of an NFL draft expert like yourself, and you're putting a post like that together. And you find out Ryan Poles traded the number one pick for multiple first-round picks. Maybe he went down 1, 2, 5 spots, whatever it might be. Or Ryan Poles drafts Caleb Williams and trades Justin Fields to a team for a second-round pick. Aren't both outcomes an A+? I mean, in your mind, what outcome has a better chance of getting Luke Easterling's stamp of approval as an A+? Or is it literally Ryan Poles can't screw it up? It's impossible.
I really think he can't screw it up. I think part of it depends on, say he does going to keep Fields and he trades down, and maybe if you go down too far and you miss out on Harrison. But if you want a receiver, I've said this on Twitter earlier this week, we have 3 wide receivers in this draft that in any draft would be number one, would be an easy, no problem wide receiver one. You got obviously Marvin Harrison Jr., but you got Rome Odunze from Washington. You got Malik Neighbors from LSU. any draft in which only one of those guys was in the class, he would be the number one guy. Easy. You have all three. So even if you miss out on Harrison, it feels like the best possible year to miss out on the top guy because you get the other top guy or the other top guy. So I really do feel like, I mean, he would have to trade down too far, miss out on whoever, you know, the guy or guys are that you really targeted, not get enough to move down. Fields gets hurt or it doesn't work out, or, you know, he plays well enough to get an extension, but not well enough, you know, after that to play up to it. I mean, there's things down the road that you could look at and say, but I feel like on draft night, if you're telling me at the end of the first round on that Thursday night, whether he takes Caleb Williams and trades Justin Fields or keeps Justin Fields and trades down and gets another one of those top receivers and a bunch more picks or whatever, I can't see a scenario, especially if you look at what he got last year and the moves that he has already made. I kind of feel confident in his ability to not screw that up. I feel like there's no way they come out of that night. Again, you talked about it in the intro. They also have another top 10 pick, oh, by the way, that a lot of other teams would love to have. I really don't feel like he's going to come out of this draft smelling like anything other than roses, man.
I mean, it's one of those things, right, where if the Chicago Bears ended the season with 7 wins and for one reason or another didn't make that trade last year, or they made the trade and Carolina won a bunch of games and maybe they're picking in the 20s and the Bears' first pick was number 9 overall, Bears fans would be excited, right? Yeah. Bears fans would be excited about having another top 10 pick coming to a roster that was a couple of fourth quarter collapses away from being a playoff team. Mm-hmm. The 9th overall pick is not even being discussed. And that goes to show how powerful of a moment this is for the Bears because of the debate surrounding what to do at quarterback. So, Luke, you're in a room full of Bears fans and you're up on stage and you have to convince Bears fans as to why they should draft Caleb Williams. Tell us what makes Caleb Williams so special that he could be an upgrade over a player like Justin Fields.
I think you see certain moments where they're similar, right? And I think they're good athletes in very different ways. I think that as a runner, as a pure runner, I think Justin Fields is way better. He's more explosive. I think he's more physical. I think he's more of a linear big play, can create not just to throw, but to break the pocket and like you've seen multiple times, just take off and outrun everybody. I don't think that's Caleb Williams' game. I think what separates Caleb Williams is when he throws the ball. There's some hero ball there. There's some trying to do too much from time to time. There's some trying to fit things into tight windows that maybe you don't, you probably should learn from and not do that again. But most of the time, man, I mean, he's very precise. He makes throws that the very few people can make, and he has the confidence and almost the arrogance to be able to make those throws sometimes. And there are moments, I hate comparing guys to the best guys in the game because I just don't think it's fair, but to use the Chiefs as an example, the reason that they are playing Sunday, again, after having, by their account, by their comparison, a kind of a rough season, right? Not this season we expected from the Chiefs. They've had a great defensive effort that has kept them in those games, but there are always like 3 or 4 plays a game where number 15 just does something stupid. Just does something out. How was that? How did that happen? And those 3 or 4 plays set him apart in a way that make Patrick Mahomes great, right? And I think, again, it's unfair to do that for a rookie, but Caleb Williams has made those moments happen in his college career, and I feel like the way he does it translates well to the next level. That's the type of guy you are getting, a guy that he's I think a more advanced passer, more accurate, more precise, has a better overall arm, I think, than Justin Fields, can still make plays athletically, maybe in a different way, but can get out of the pocket, can escape. He's got good pocket presence and can move around. And when it comes down to it, when those games are on the line and those plays, you just have to have those otherworldly plays where no matter what the defense does, he just does something, whether it's putting the ball in the right spot where nobody can get it 40 yards down the field, or breaking contain and throwing off a sack and making a 3rd and 14 scramble that just breaks the back of the defense. There's been those moments with Caleb Williams, those instincts moments where you're just like, man, this kid is special. And I think that for me You throw the cherry on top when you're talking about the salary cap. Obviously, you get to reset at the quarterback position. You get to start over on a rookie contract, save yourself some money for the next 4 to 5 years. I think that has to come into it. But if we're just talking about the players, that's what gives me the nod, and that's what makes me feel comfortable taking Caleb Williams, because I think in those moments he can be that special.
And look, you've been around a long time, Luke. You've been doing the draft stuff a long time, longer than just about anybody in the game right now. And you don't use those player comps. Like, it's very careful. What you're very careful.
I hate them. I don't.
The experienced analyst, the experienced draft guy is not going to say that just to say it. It's not for clicks, right? I remember when Patrick Mahomes was coming out, the comp that a lot of analysts gave him was Brett Favre, and Brett Favre is Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best who ever played the game, and it felt unfair to call Patrick Mahomes Brett Favre at the time, but you saw those qualities on film when he was at Texas Tech, where he just did things that were different from other dudes. And that's what Brett Favre did routinely as a pro with the Packers, as Bears fans know all too well. And here we are several years into Mahomes' career, and he has basically dominated the NFL since his first season as a starter, and has done things as good, if not better, than Brett Favre. So now looking at Caleb Williams and saying he does those things that Patrick Mahomes does, the odds that he will have 6 appearances in the Super Bowl, whatever it is now, 6 straight AFC championship games, multiple Super Bowl wins, the odds that any player can reach the level of team success that Patrick Mahomes has had, which is where I think the player comps can sometimes get misunderstood.
Right.
Like when Patrick Mahomes is the reference point for Caleb Williams, it's not that analysts are saying that Caleb Williams is going to turn the Bears into 6 straight NFC championship appearances and multiple Super Bowl wins. I mean, that's a team dependent, front office dependent type of roster building exercise that has to go into that as well. But on the field play and production, there's a chance he could be very much like Patrick Mahomes. And like, how do you pass that up?
Well,
but
and,
now,
and
Luke,
one thing you have to remember with those player comps too is that we're trying to compare them to these guys as prospects, because Patrick Mahomes coming out wasn't Patrick Mahomes now. He had those flashes, he had those moments where he showed what he could do, but it wasn't the total package. We're not evaluating him as a 6-7 year NFL veteran, because you can't do that. That's not fair. He doesn't have that experience. We're saying Patrick Mahomes as a prospect developed from here to there. Caleb Williams is showing the types of skills, the types of plays, the types of moments in the same spots that Patrick Mahomes was doing it at Texas Tech. And therefore you can kind of extrapolate that out. Obviously there's so many variables. You can't count on, him having an Andy Reid type coach in Chicago or wherever. You can't count on him having Tyreek Hill or some of these other things that he were able to allow him to develop, or to sit behind an Alex Smith for a year. Those things could impact that. But all we can do is evaluate him from where he was there at the same spot. And that's where it makes sense.
So you're in that same room with all Bears fans, and you're standing on a stage, and there's a bunch of pitchforks and torches out, and it's your job to convince this crowd that Justin Fields is the right choice for the Chicago Bears, and not the draft prospect that you just described as a Patrick Mahomes type of evaluation. What would you say are the reasons for rolling with Justin Fields, not the draft haul? I'm not talking about like, well, you keep Justin Fields and you get so many picks. Well, that's great if you got picks, but if you don't have the quarterback, the picks aren't really going to materialize into much unless you can develop a Baltimore Ravens circa Trent Dilfer days and build a championship around a quarterback who's average at best. And I'm not saying that about Fields, but what is the argument for Fields, the quarterback, the player, for getting what happens if they keep him and trade the pick? I don't care about the picks they get back. I care about who the quarterback is and how he plays. Why would you roll with Justin Fields in year 4, or why not? Have you seen enough to say it's time to move on?
I mean, I'm biased about him. You know this. I was super high on him coming out of the draft. I'm super high on him now. And I think if I'm Ryan Poles, I'll be honest. I would say most of what Justin Fields has struggled with is my fault in terms of the organization. I would say that the worst moments that he has had as our franchise quarterback, I take those. I'll take those and say we didn't have the coaching staff at the jump to help him develop his first year or two in the league. I will take it and say we didn't put enough around him to allow him, because again, playing the quarterback position, people will say, oh, he holds the ball too long and this mechanical thing is wrong. So much of his mechanical flaws and his inability to get rid of the ball can be traced back to those first few games and that first stretch with Matt Nagy and the way that offense set him up to fail. If you lose trust as a quarterback in what's happening in front of you and what's happening around you, both on the sidelines and at the terms of the supporting cast, your play and even your mechanics, things that you've been doing since you were in college, since you were in high school, those things will start to unravel. They will start to backfire on you because you have lost trust. Your eyes go from here to all of this, and your elbow starts dropping. Your accuracy starts to suffer. You start to try to bail from the pocket too early, and you lose yourself when those things happen. So if I'm Ryan Poles, I say, listen, at his best, when we have actually given this kid a chance to thrive, he has shown special ability, both as a runner and a thrower. He has had his moments as a passer, needs to be more consistent. But I would say the most important reason why I believe in him is not just the highlights, but the fact that everybody in that locker room believes in him and wants him to be the guy. And listen to a lot of the players that have spoken publicly after this season, even leading up to the end of the season. They want that guy. They want to continue to build around that guy. That's who they've gone to battle with over the last 3 years, and they want to continue to do that and build that winner. They want to see him be the guy that leads. And I think when you get your locker room to rally around a guy like that, that means a lot. And so when you look at the on-field play, you look at what he's done compared to what he's had to work with up until, again, this last year, they really finally started to put some pieces around him. I would say, as Ryan Poles, I'm finally confident that I have put a environment around him to allow him to play his best. I know I'm putting my neck out there because he's got to do it or I'm going to be out of a job. But that's why I'm confident, man. The flashes have been there. I haven't done my job to let him be his best, but he's still managed to get all those guys in the locker room to believe he's the guy, and I agree.
Before I ask you this next question, Luke, I got to tell all you Bears talkers out there, make sure you're subscribed, like, comment. Let us know in the chat. Ask any questions. Right now's the time. We got Luke Easterling with us from Athlon Sports, the senior editor of the Athlon Sports 2024 NFL Draft Guide. You're going to be pulling into CVS, Wawa, 7-Eleven, wherever you kind of pick up your coffees and waters and sodas, and you're going to see the Athlon Sports Guide and Draft Guide in there. And it's this dude right next to me who wrote it, essentially. I'm sure he did have a lot of help, and he'll give a hat tip to his teammates as well. But this is the dude behind that. So now's the time, Bears fans, hop in that chat and make sure you post your questions. And if you're listening to this in your podcast on your way to work or what have you, make sure you're following Luke on Twitter at Luke Easterling. He's one of the best follows, and he always engages and answers questions you guys have. So even if you're listening to this after the fact, make sure you drop him your Chicago Bears draft or just general NFL draft questions. And on the podcast platforms, make sure you're following and subscribe there. Leave a rating and a review, and make sure you're following Bears Talk at the Bears Talk on Twitter. Luke, my next question for you. 5 years from now, it's the year 2020, 29, whatever it is. Who's the better NFL quarterback, Caleb Williams or Justin Fields?
Damn, that's tough. I think it's probably Caleb Williams. I think I have more confidence in his ability as a passer to hit that ceiling. And I just don't know what's going to happen around Justin Fields that will allow him to go back and recapture the player we saw at his best at Ohio State. This is a guy who threw for however many yards, 6 touchdown passes in the playoffs against the Brent Venables defense in Clemson that was dominant all year long. When he is confident in what's happening around him, he has shown he can be that guy. I don't know if he can recapture that after what he's gone through in Chicago up to this point and become that guy again against NFL competition without the right surroundings. And so it's a lot easier for me to say Caleb Williams can hit the ground running and maybe not have to deal with that and be able to hit his ceiling sooner. And again, because I think he's so polished as a passer already and more accurate, I feel like I'd have to give the edge to him there. But again, that's a lot of speculation.
Do you think if you had to pick a landing spot for Justin Fields that you think would get him to that ceiling, if it's not the Bears, if you think the Bears, unfortunately, that the train has left the station and it's not coming back, and there was a team that was going to roll the dice on Fields, maybe trade a second or a Sam Darnold type of deal for him, what would you identify? What team would you identify right now if you're putting your fortune teller hat on? Is a club that Bears fans should be circling as, oh, this could be the team or short list of teams that actually makes a power move here for Justin Fields?
I think the team for me is the team that I've been including the last couple of mock drafts I've done. I usually go 3 rounds every week. But the team that make the most sense to me is Atlanta. I think the Falcons, both in terms of where they are as a franchise. I know they just fired Arthur Smith. They brought in Raheem Morris, and I think he'll have the defensive side of the ball continue to play at a high level. But the offense, you're talking about an offense that has spent 3 straight top 10 picks on offensive weapons, right? You've got Bijan Robinson, you've got Kyle Pitts, you've got Drake London, and they have another top 10 pick this year, which unless they trade into the top 5, they're not getting one of the top 3 quarterbacks in this draft. So from Atlanta's perspective, you're saying, hey, the biggest reason we fired Arthur Smith is that we kept giving him a bunch of offensive weapons, and we couldn't figure the quarterback out, and he couldn't figure out how to take all that talent on offense and score points consistently. Just couldn't do it. So we're going to have an offense that is ready-made weapons-wise to give a quarterback a place to distribute the ball. And when you add his athleticism and running ability to an offense that has those weapons already, and say they're sitting at 8, what if they get Rome Odunze? What if they get Malik Neighbors as a number 2, basically, to go with Drake London, to go with Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts? What if they do that? And you are willing to trade? I think they're picking 42nd right now is where they have their second-round pick. So maybe it's a 2. Maybe it's a conditional 2 next year. I think I tend to say quarterbacks are not cheap, and I think that the Bears could probably get more than a 2 for Justin Fields. Not saying they could get a 1, but it would have to be another pick involved, I think, if it's just a 2. But Atlanta is the team that I think makes the most sense. There's some other ones that I think could be sniffing around there, but Atlanta is the team that I think he would fit really well. They have a lot of weapons already there that they're waiting for someone who can take advantage of them. And I feel like they would be willing to give up the right package of picks to make it worth Chicago's while.
So Luke, one of the viewers here, Skox? Good dude. Interact with him quite a bit on Twitter and here anytime the podcast goes live. He asked a pretty good question here. When do you think this will go down? When would a Justin Fields or even the first overall pick, when should Bears fans expect the possibility of a trade to actually occur? I think the DJ Moore trade happened, in March of last year. It was a good month or so before the draft. The Panthers got the spotlight of having that number 1 pick for well over a month, it felt like. I'll kind of cut the line here and say that the NFL scouting combine, I think, is where deals tend to get made. Yeah. The parameters of deals tend to get made. And Ryan Poles and his crew is going to be meeting with any interested teams for both the first pick and Justin Fields. And I would say they're going to leave Indianapolis with a pretty good idea of what they're going to do at quarterback, depending on the offers and their overall evaluation. Because by the time we reach the scouting combine at the end of the month, these guys have watched all the film. Then they're going to start meeting with Caleb. And I'm sorry, I know a lot of the other, big media outlets or even the Bears writers that you might come across on Twitter or whatnot, think there's all this investigating and research that needs to be done on Caleb Williams, the person, between now and April. And let me tell you something, Bears fans. If Ryan Poles doesn't have a complete file on Caleb Williams, the man, from personality to criminal record to his transcript in school to interviews with teachers and everything in between, he's failed. Okay, that intel is absolutely gathered already. And right now it's just coming down to the finish line, in my opinion. I don't think this marathon is just starting. I think they're coming to the finish line, and that's why the scouting combine, and probably, in my opinion, about a 4-week window after the scouting combine, which brings it to like mid to late March, is when I think a deal would get done. But what about you, Luke? This is such a complicated set of facts because you're talking about a team that if they make a trade for Justin Fields, they're kind of going all in on him. I mean, you could be Sam Darnold part 2, where it's just like a 1-year thing and it doesn't work out. But do you think it's going to go right down to the end here, draft weekend, where Justin Fields and Caleb Williams could actually overlap and be on the roster at the same time before the Bears actually move Fields? What do you think is going to happen?
No, I don't think it'll go that late. I tend to agree with you, and I think last year's trade that they made with Carolina is a perfect example of why there's a peak of not just when it makes sense in terms of your evaluation of the quarterbacks, but when you have to maximize the public value of the asset that you're trying to trade, which in their case, once Ryan Poles establishes whether or not he's going to keep the pick and use it on Caleb Williams or not, that's when you make the trade or don't. So if he has gone through all the film, all the scouts have gone through all the film, and they've gone through it on everybody. They've gone through it on Drake May. They've gone through it on Jaden Daniels. Everybody should be a part of this conversation. You can evaluate all the quarterbacks that you have the ability to take at 1, and the guy you already have. If you make a choice that I'm going to keep the guy I have, or I'm going to use this pick on a new guy, once you made that call, the other asset has to get dealt right now. Like, because what you're going to have is, the closer you get to the draft, I think the harder it's going to be for Ryan Poles to keep whatever that decision is under wraps, right? And the longer that goes on, the more certain teams are what they're going to do, the less they're going to be able to get for that pick. So what Ryan's got to do is, say he identifies, okay, we're going to stick at 1, we're going to take Caleb Williams. You trade Justin Fields as soon as possible, because you don't need teams wondering, oh, well, if he's already decided that, I can wait him out. I can wait him out till draft weekend. He takes Caleb Williams. Now he has to deal Justin Fields. He's not going to hang on to him. You're going to wait. It's not that the league doesn't work that way anymore. It's just not going to be that way. You're not going to take a quarterback at 1, sit in behind a 24-year-old starter, because then if Justin Fields goes out and balls out for 4 weeks, you look like an idiot. It's not going to happen. We're not going to get to draft weekend, I don't think, and not have a deal made one way or the other, because the peak of Justin Fields' value as a trade asset is going to be in that range that you just talked about. That month after the combine, he's going to leave the combine knowing what the teams who are interested are willing to hypothetically give him in the event that he wants to move off that pick. He's going to have the deal that he likes the best. He'll maybe give the other teams a ring and see if they can beat it, and then he'll pull the trigger on that trade.
If Justin Fields was in this draft class, Luke, where is he ranked in your quarterback rankings?
He's probably right behind Caleb Williams. Really? I mean, again, you know how I felt about him coming out. That draft board for me was Trevor Lawrence at 1.
But I will say this, Luke, you did say right behind.
I did.
Caleb Williams, which is something I think that Bears fans on either side of this debate have to really pay close attention to, because I don't think I've met a single draft analyst, scout, Bears, high-level Bears content creator, NFL writer. I was down in Mobile for the Senior Bowl this last week, and everybody I spoke with down there, like literally bar none, Luke, from just casual fan to high-level NFL mind, it's Caleb Williams over Justin Fields. And when you say, for example, your quarterback rankings, and I remember how high you were on Justin Fields, you loved the dude, he would be behind Caleb Williams. That is saying something, is it not?
It is. And again, my board that year, I remember, was Trevor Lawrence at 1 overall. Kyle Pitts was number 2. I still, as a Bucs fan, I'm really glad that they never figured out how to use him in Atlanta. But I loved Kyle Pitts coming out of that draft. And Justin Fields was number 3. I had him as the number 3 overall player in that draft. And especially when you take into effect that he plays quarterback, the fact that the Bears got him at 11, I thought was fantastic. Again, I think particularly as a passer, I think Caleb Williams is just special, and I think that's what sets him apart. I do think he's not the best player in this draft. I still think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in this draft overall. I think right now, if you go get the magazine, you'll see Caleb Williams at 4 overall in terms of my overall board. I'm a big fan of both of these tackles. I think Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt are studs. I love both of those guys. So in terms of the overall grades, again, it doesn't really work that way. You know how that works, and quarterbacks are just too important. So in terms of their overall grades, technically Justin Fields was number 3 on that board. Caleb Williams is number 4 right now for me. There's obviously still a lot of time, but I just love Marvin Harrison. I love these offensive tackles. So it doesn't take away from the fact that I think he's the best quarterback in this draft. And again, I think he's got some special traits that just give him that superstar ability.
Special traits. Luke, let's turn to our next question here from Wayne Bender. Are they special like Aaron Rodgers special? Do you see Aaron Rodgers traits when you watch Caleb Williams?
Yeah, 100%. And again, I think the thing that has separated Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback is he just might be the best thrower of a football on the planet, maybe ever. Like in terms of his ability, not just arm strength, but the ability to use it effectively in like every situation. His arm angles, his accuracy, and the way he developed over his career. He knows right where the ball needs to go. He's got enough arm strength. He's got enough anticipation and precision, knows how to get guys in certain places. I think you could put Aaron Rodgers in a very short list of the best throwers of a football in the history of humanity. And I think Caleb Williams, again, he just has those moments where he shows that uncanny ability to maneuver the pocket. You don't think of Aaron Rodgers as being one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the league, right? You think of mobile quarterbacks, you think of even a Justin Fields or a Lamar Jackson who can make all these yards rushing. I think Aaron Rodgers is one of the most mobile quarterbacks we've ever seen because of his ability within the pocket to navigate a muddy pocket and still stay upright, still make a good throw, extend the play, and make a throw down the field. That's what we see so much from Caleb Williams that I think that's a nice comparison.
Here's a good question from Kurt Norman, and I think this is really what is at the core of the debate amongst Bears fans right now when you add in the potential value of trading the number 1 pick. He says, if Caleb Williams is basically Trevor Lawrence, isn't a trade back better? Wouldn't you rather have Marvin Harrison Jr., one of those offensive tackles, and all those future picks? Even if Caleb is guaranteed to produce like Trevor Lawrence, give me the trade back.
That's why you can't go wrong. That's why you can't go wrong to me.
You can't go wrong, but I mean, Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. I mean, I don't know. I think Trevor Lawrence is disgustingly underrated right now because, maybe he's not winning fantasy football leagues, right? He's not producing at the level that the dynasty owners wanted him to with 40 touchdowns a season. But if there was a video, I think Ian Hartitz from Underdog Fantasy posted an amazing video on Twitter that was like, look how close Trevor Lawrence was to like 40 plus touchdown passes. And it's like second foot is like barely out of bounds for a receiver, or perfectly feathered throw over the linebacker dropped by a receiver in the end zone. Rep after rep of near misses for touchdowns for Trevor Lawrence, where if all of those plays hit, right, which there will be a season when they do, the narrative around Trevor Lawrence is very different. So I think
so many injuries, Brian. Not
exactly
to Trevor himself down the stretch there, but offensive line was gutted. His receivers were rarely ever together.
I have a hard time thinking that a Bears fan would say no to Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. And if Caleb Williams could be Trevor Lawrence for the Bears, I think you're going to take that 10 out of 10 times, even if you're a huge Justin Fields fan. I do think the ceiling on Justin Fields' effectiveness as a pocket passer is much lower than Caleb Williams and obviously Trevor Lawrence. And as we've seen, Luke, this NFL, the way the quarterbacks evolve in the league, the great running quarterbacks have to evolve into better passers to sustain long-term success. Lamar Jackson's going to win the MVP tonight because he has developed as a passer over the first several years of his career to where he's the ultimate weapon now playing quarterback. Not every guy can do that, right? Not all these, and then these hits that Justin Fields takes in year 3 that he can get up from because he's 23, 24 years old. When he's 27, 28, and the body takes a little longer to heal, if the passing hasn't caught up with the running, he's a much less effective player. Whereas the guy who can sling it from the pocket, which Caleb Williams can do, as well as he can get out of the pocket and win, those guys have your 15, 16 success in the league. So, Luke, you could see that this is a conversation that literally can be had for hours and hours. Bears fans will battle this. It's almost like the politics of Bears fandom, Republicans versus Democrats, where it's yelling at the wall and not having necessarily a healthy conversation. And that's why bringing you in and not having that Bears fan perspective, I hope, is a very, enlightening experience for Bears fans, where you can have this conversation and not be, yelled at, screamed at, criticized, made fun of on Twitter or other social media platforms simply because your opinion might be different. Bears fans, let's use this as a life lesson. It's, first of all, it's not that serious, right? Like, no matter what happens, the Bears are going to have a great quarterback next year. It's either Justin Fields or Caleb Williams. Let's focus on that reality right now. Like, this can't be screwed up. But more importantly, let's enjoy the conversation. Let's enjoy the Bears talk, right? You can't make this like a frustrating, nauseating experience. And I want to pivot off of it now because we got to get to the pick that I think is the most likely asset that Ryan Poles is going to trade this year, and that's the number 9 pick. I think that is where Ryan Poles is going to make a move. I think you're going to see Ryan Poles possibly swing that number 9 pick into the asset that he picks up a second rounder by sliding toward the end of round 1 and gathering day 2 picks in addition to that slide back. If he stays at 9, Luke, do you think there's any chance in this, you know what, Brad, we have a question here from Brad Cathcart or Cathart or whatever. I'm really bad with names, guys. So you're going to put a name out there.
Right,
you could literally say John Smith, and I would probably say Johan Smythe. I'm going to butcher it no matter what it is. It could be as simple as John Smith. I'm going to screw it up. So Brad Cathcart, it's probably that. Maybe it's something different. I don't know. But your question is, what do you think the Bears get at number 9? So that's exactly what we're going to pivot to here. Do you think there's any chance, Luke, that Rome Odunze is there at number 9, or is that like pipe dream?
I think it's pipe dream. I think it's pipe dream just because, I mean, you know how I feel about him too. He's been wide receiver 1A. If he would have gone last year, he would have been my wide receiver 1. I was talking about him in December of 2022. Like, this is the guy. This guy's going to be fantastic. So I'm obviously very high on him as a prospect, but it's also about the teams that are picking ahead of you. You know, you look at Atlanta at 8. You look at even Tennessee at 7. I think they go tackle, especially if one of those 2 guys are on the board, Alt or Fashanu. But the Giants at 6, they need a number 1 receiver. The Chargers at 5 could take one. Obviously, the Cardinals at 4 are probably sitting there hoping and praying that Marvin Harrison Jr. falls into their lap there. So I just feel like even with those 3 guys, with Odunze and Neighbors and Harrison, I think they're all top 10 prospects, and I think there's too many teams in that range. And again, I love the fact that they bring different things to the table, as our chat just pops up there and talks about Neighbors as a yak machine. Odunze and Neighbors win in completely different ways. Some of the same ways, but they're very different players that bring different things to the table. And so I love that out of this wide receiver class overall. But those 3 guys are so good, and there's so many teams ahead of 9 that need that type of player. I think if any of those top 3 receivers make it to 9, I think it's a very small miracle.
So if the receivers are gone and the Bears have to level up the pass catching options on offense, while tight ends technically don't have that top 10 valuation, I think Kyle Pitts could end up scaring some teams off of Brock Bowers. Vernon Davis was a highly drafted tight end, and he had a really good career, but it took a little while for him to get going. OJ Howard was one of my draft crushes. He was a first-round guy, never really got going. And then you see the success of the 2023 NFL draft, where guys like Sam Laporta, you know, he's one of the best rookie seasons, arguably the best rookie season ever in NFL history for a tight end, and a slew of other second round, third round guys producing early in their career, even outproducing the first round tight ends. Do you think that will scare a team like the Bears off of Brock Bowers, or is Brock Bowers going to be viewed as a guy who is, again, using the word different, where he's more receiver than tight end? He's like a barreling running back who has wiggle and power in the open field if you get him the ball. He's not a Cole Kmet, where Cole Kmet is catch and fall. Great player. I love Cole Kmet. Good NFL player, but he's a catch, turn, and fall guy. Brock Bowers is a catch and run guy. So he could be that wide receiver weapon if all 3 receivers, the run happens. But do you think the value is there for the Bears to actually take a kid like Brock Bowers, who is going to be positioned as a tight end in the league, even though he'll be that joker moving all over the field?
Yeah, I think honestly, Bowers is kind of George Kittle for me. I feel like he's that size, basically. He's that versatile. I think he can block pretty well. And you talk about Neighbors after the catch. Brock Bowers is Malik Neighbors at tight end after the catch. He's that's where he excels the most, I think. But I do wonder, the recent tight ends, like you said, and the fact that you feel like I don't think this tight end class is as deep as last year's, but I wonder if teams are going to – I feel like you're going to have a plan. You're going to have a really clear-cut plan, and I think Kyle Pitts is a prime example. There was no plan to feature him in that offense, to take advantage of what he did well, and that's why he's been one of the bigger disappointments. I know fantasy fans are a different, conversation, but he just hasn't been maximized in that offense because there's no plan. So if you're going to take a tight end in the top 10, you have got to be willing to commit to involving him and featuring him in your offense to the point where he can prove himself to be worthy of that pick. If you're not going to use him in that way, why would you spend a top 10 pick on him? So, I mean, he could go as high as 5 to the Chargers, who will really need a tight end, and you put him in that room with Justin Herbert and Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnston from last year. That could be nasty. But if he doesn't go top 10, I mean, it wouldn't shock me at all for a bunch of teams in a row to just be like, yeah, he'd be fun to have, but I need something else more. And there's another really good prospect that I is good enough at a position I actually need. I can't afford the luxury of taking a really, really great tight end, especially if I don't really have a plan to get him make him the focal point of my passing game. That's where I could feel him getting out of the top 10, top 15.
So if you have, let's say, do you have quarterbacks 1, 2, 3, and then receivers 4, 5, 6?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time that seems to be the way it happens.
So the Bears are at 9, 7, 8. Do you think it's tackle, or do one of these guys fall to 9? Olu or Alt?
One of those tackles always seems to fall to 9. And I think if you're the Jets at 10, you're sweating bullets, hoping that the Bears don't take one of them, right? Because you need one to protect Aaron Rodgers to avoid hopefully a scenario that they had last year where the offensive line directly led to a serious injury there. But I think the Jets are really hoping that the Bears really, really like Braxton Jones and they're really satisfied with him at left tackle, because if Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu is there at 9, I am flying up to the podium, as they say, to turn in that card.
It could be one of those situations, just like last year when Jalen Carter fell and the Bears moved back one spot and picked up a 4th rounder from the Eagles to go down one spot. You know, they might be able to get a 3rd round pick from the Jets to move down one spot if they can put enough of a smokescreen out there that offensive tackle might be on their radar. But do you think there's any chance, Luke, that the number 9 pick is used on a defensive player? Or do you think it will be all about giving support to either Caleb Williams or Justin Fields at that selection?
I think there's a huge chance it'll be a defensive player. And again, I don't know if that's more Matt Eberflus, still being the head coach and having some influence on what he wants on that side of the ball. But, you saw the impact that Montez Sweat had from the jump when he was acquired at the trade deadline. And that's one side. You got one side taken care of. But that player becomes that much more valuable and dynamic if you add a similar player on the other end of that defensive front, which is something he had in Washington with him and Chase Young. But I think edge rusher will be a very, very high possibility in large part because none of them will be off the board yet. And, I know how you feel about Laiatu Latu. And obviously we know there will be injury questions and the medicals will be huge for them. But when he's playing football on the field, on tape, that is a dominant dude, man. He is, and I think he fits the defense really well. I think his frame, his skill set, the way he wins, I think he's a very, very well-rounded player that would fit really well in that defense. You put that guy opposite a dominant Montez Sweat. Again, the medicals are going to be huge, but as a football player, Latu makes a lot of sense there for me.
Man, he's my number 1 edge rusher in this draft, and we don't have access to the medicals, and I do think his medicals are going to be really, really bad. When they talk about the neck injury, and UCLA had him do these muscle strengthening exercises just to be able to get back on the field. You're strengthening your muscles to protect probably a really bad problem behind the muscles, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what the NFL teams are going to obviously spend the most time on, because you don't want to invest a top 10 pick on a young man who could end up suffering a career ending, even if it's not like an on-field serious, oh my God, heart-stopping moment. It could just be, look, this is a degenerative condition and it's your neck and it's just, you can't play football anymore. And that's why I think you could see a Miles Jack 2nd round slide for him, even though he's a top 10 player in my opinion, and would be absolutely on, like you just said, Luke, on field production. He's a number 9 pick every single day of the week.
He's Michael Penix Jr., but on defense.
Right. Michael Penix is another guy who, his medicals will determine. I will say this though. This is just general draft talk. And guys, this is what happens anytime Luke and I get
we
together.
Can't help it. Sorry.
I mean, we've gone to the Senior Bowl many, many years together. Luke hasn't been there the last couple of years. He's hoping to get back soon. But
I almost made my background picture the shadow monster for you.
It's perfect. I didn't want to acknowledge it because I didn't want Bears fans to send
I know you were avoiding it. I saw you keep looking. I knew you were going to bring it
up. So I've avoided it up to this point, but you called it out yourself, so you better have a good Kevlar vest on over there. But at the end of the day, when Luke and I are together, the draft will start with Bucks and Bears talk, and then it just goes into things like Michael Penix. And I will say this: do you remember the draft with Teddy Bridgewater and the anonymous scouts that were saying skinny knees?
Skinny knees, baby.
Teddy Bridgewater. And honestly, it ended up being accurate. Like, remember in training camp, brutal injury where his knee like basically ruptured, altered the whole path of his career. I think that was his second season, right?
Yeah.
Down at the Senior Bowl, Michael Penix, like, dude's got some skinny knees. And he's got a really bad history with his knees. And I have a feeling he's going to be a dude who, by the way, his film, I'm not totally blown away by. I don't think he's a sure thing first rounder just as a quarterback, let alone a checkered injury history. So, but you never know.
He's also the same age as Justin Fields.
Well, exactly. And there's a lot of guys in this draft that
4 months younger.
Yeah, there's a lot of dudes in this draft who are going to be older than some unrestricted free agents that are entering their second contract, which, the benefit of the COVID season is that these guys had an extra year to develop. The downside for these guys is it took off some earning capacity or earning potential for them because their careers are not going to be nearly as long as we're used to seeing for rookies that come into the league. But Luke, before we call this a day, it wouldn't be fair to end a Bears Talk podcast on the day that I don't think it's been announced yet, unless you see anything. I'm checking my Twitter timeline now, but I don't think it's been announced yet. But Devin Hester, Hall of Fame. I saw you were tweeting out some pro Hester content today on Twitter, which makes my heart smile. Devin Hester, I said this the other night on the Tape Never Lies podcast, that he is the only football player that literally almost took me from this earth. And that's a legitimate thing. In the Super Bowl, when the Bears were playing the Colts and he returned the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, it took me a long time to get my heart rate to settle down. Like, I was literally, he almost sent me into cardiac arrest. And honestly, if I died at that moment,
that's a win, right?
That's a win, man, because I would not have known how the game ended, and my soul would be fluttering up to heaven. Hopefully that's where we go. And I would say, I am happy. Like, I'm happy. Like, that was a great moment. And my family would be able to say, how did he die? He died because of Devin Hester. That might be the ultimate proof that somebody's a Hall of Famer, right?
And the ultimate proof that you are a true Bears fan, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, literally they say die hard Bears fan. I almost died hard because of the Chicago Bears and Devin Hester. But Luke, if you could sum Devin Hester up in just a couple of words, what would they be?
Listen, I mean, first of all, it's so nice to finally have a Hall of Fame class where I don't have to be lobbying for Rondé Barber anymore. Like, it's just like every year.
You were his guy, man.
I have to just keep doing this over. It's so nice to not care. Whoever gets in, it's going to be great. But no, like you said, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not a Bears fan. I don't care. As a football fan, somebody who's watched the game, you can't tell the NFL story without this guy. You can't. And when you are the best who ever did something, you should go to the Hall of Fame. And you can look at the box scores and say, oh, he went so long without returning a touchdown or whatever. Yeah. And a lot of guys go a long time without interceptions because nobody throws them the damn ball. And so when you are able to affect game strategy as a return specialist in the way that Devin Hester did, and every time they made a mistake, you made them pay and reminded them why you don't do that. I have a great fantasy football story about that Monday night game against the Rams where he had the twofer. Mm-hmm. That, like, I went to bed after the first one and was like, I'm probably not going to win, but we had return yardage in a league and I beat my friend on the second one in the playoffs. It was just glorious. So I'll love Devin Hester till the day I die. Maybe I do have a dog in this fight, actually. Maybe I want him to get it.
Well, you know what it is, man? I think Devin Hester, like, a special dude, like the Randy Mosses of the world. Everybody's going to probably have a Randy Moss story. Aaron Donalds of the world, even like a Michael Vick. The guys that changed the game when they played, everybody's going to have that moment when Devin Hester won you a fantasy game. Devin Hester almost put me into my grave.
Or ruined your night for your team.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, and he was, or exactly, if you were playing against Devin Hester. So, I mean, he's one of my favorite Bears of all time. He was a true weapon, the definition of a nuclear weapon on the field and ahead of his time. If Devin Hester was playing now, who knows what he would be with how the game has has tilted toward favoring the offense with rules and stuff. He wouldn't be nearly as prolific as a returner because that's been almost taken out of the game. But in terms of like a slot receiver now, even like a third down running back now, I would really be curious to see what kind of career Devin Hester would have as an offensive skill player, in addition to what he would bring to the table, obviously, as the greatest of all time at what he did. And if anybody, no matter what industry you're in, if you are considered the greatest of all time at your craft, you are in whatever that industry's Hall of Fame is. You have to be in it if you're the greatest who ever did what you do. So Devin Hester, congratulations to him. I know Julius Peppers and Steve McMichael are also getting in tonight, allegedly. Again, we're probably going to sign off right before the official announcement is made, but congratulations to those guys. And Luke, a big congratulations to you for having the Athlon Sports 2024 NFL Draft Guide. I'm going to buy a copy. I'm going to send it to you, and I want a personally autographed copy that makes a prediction about Caleb Williams, whether he's going to the Bears and what his career will be like. And I'm going to save it like a time capsule, and we're going to pull that bad boy out in 5 to 7 years, and we'll see whether or not you are on the money. Luke, tell everybody where they can find you and where you'll be sharing all your draft content over the next couple months.
On Twitter, it's pretty simple. Where is it? It's over here. Yeah, at Luke Easterling. Nice and simple. But no, you can come over to Athlon Sports. Obviously, please go out and buy the draft guide, guys. This is something we put a lot of work into. I know a lot of things are online these days, but if you grew up like me, reading newspapers and reading these magazines, I feel like there's still something special about holding that book in your hands and taking it with you and reading it on the bus or reading it at work or reading it wherever you might be. I love to have a book in my hands and still be able to flip through the pages. And the only way that we get to keep doing that is you guys keep buying them. So go out and tell everybody at Athlon Sports that these things are still valuable to you as readers and as fans. Go out and buy them, and so we can keep making them. And then obviously come on over to the SI draft site as well. I run everything on the SI draft site, so si.com/NFL/draft. I know I'm a Bucks guy, but I cover the NFL for all 32 teams over there.
Luke, you are A++. Any draft grade that will be given for your work will always be an A+, my friend. Thank you for coming on. We're going to have you on again real soon. I just put the wrong
person yourself
on.
Out.
Yeah, you almost went solo there, Luke. Let me get you out of here, buddy. Bears fans, I really appreciate, as always, you guys tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe to Bears Talk on YouTube. Make sure you are subscribed to our podcast, your favorite podcast provider. Make sure we are in your podcast feed. We're going to try to get here every week, maybe twice a week. The offseason is going to be loaded with news, free agency, the NFL draft, and everything in between. We're going to try to bring you sensible Bears talk, Bears fans. It's time to get away from the toxicity of Twitter, the toxicity of the know-it-alls, the people that you see on social media who try to force you to fan the way they think you should fan. The only thing that matters is how you feel about the Bears and what you want the Bears to do. And you share that opinion in a healthy and stable way, and we'll all enjoy some really good Bears talk. Make sure you subscribe to Bears Talk on the site. You level up to a premium Bears talker. You get rid of all those annoying ads. I know the ads are annoying, Bears fans. I know, but so you've got to keep the lights on somehow. And if you guys subscribe, become a premium Bears talker, it's like $3 and change a month, $29 a year. That's like a little over $2 a month. You can help us get rid of those ads, and you can have a better user experience. You can also gain access to our Discord channel, and we're going to have exclusive NFL draft content for premium Bears talkers. Bears fans, this is fun. This was a great time. Luke Easterling's my boy. We're going to have him back again. We're going to have Bears analysts and experts coming on as well. We're going to keep the healthy conversation going in the chat room, on Twitter, and over at Bears Talk. And always remember, Bears fans, all that matters is that you keep bearing down.